Okay, so I'm going to finish up by just giving you some notes or some things to think about as you work on your first programming assignment, which will be to basically print out a student information record. Okay, so you're essentially going to use a similar structure to what we have here. You'll just have one project, one class within that project, and then one main program block. Within your main program block, you're probably going to want to have multiple print statements. You can't just print everything out with just one print statement. So you can put multiple print statements in the same program block. So if I wanted to add another message, I could say something like this, good morning. Okay, so remember, each line has to have a semicolon at the end. When you print out a statement, print out a message, remember it has to be enclosed in quotation marks. That's what makes it a string, okay, which is a bunch of letters and numbers and symbols that we're going to manipulate, in this case, print out to the screen. Okay, so remember the procedure for running your program. First, I've got to compile it, so I come up here, click compile. Look at the bottom, make sure we have this message, class compiled, no syntax errors, we're good. So then we can go back to our development environment here, right click on our class file, and then the main program, void main string args, that's our main program, select it to run it. Okay, this we can ignore, we can just click OK, and there we go. So hello virtual world, good morning. So we have multiple things printed out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just clear this for now. So let's go back to our program. Okay, so again, you're going to probably want to have multiple print statements. Now, there's actually two kinds of print statements. We've been using the one that's called print line. Notice it's PRINTLN, print line. Okay, there's another type of print statement called just print without the ln at the end. And so sometimes you may want to use one as opposed to the other. Okay, so what's the difference? Okay, so let's take a look. So let me just delete those two print line statements that I have here. What if I made print statements instead? So instead of print line, PRINTLN, what if I just put print? Okay, so what if I did something like this? So notice what I've got. I've got two print statements. They're not print line statements. They're print, P-R-I-N-T, system out print. And then I've got my strings inside, my semicolons at the end. Okay, so what happens if I ran this? Let's see what happens. So compile it. Class compiled, no syntax errors, we're good. So go back to our development environment, right click on the class name, choose the main program, run it. We don't need to do anything here. Okay. Okay, now that's interesting. So look at what happened. Look carefully at what happened. Hello world is all on one line. Notice it just kind of smushed them together. So as soon as hello printed out, it just stopped. And then the next statement, print world, it just added it on to the end. Okay, so it just smushes them all together on a single line. Okay, now what if I were to change these to print line, PRINTLN, instead of just print? Okay, let's see the difference. Okay, so instead of system out print, I'm going to make those system out print line. Okay, let's compile. Class compile, no syntax errors, we're good. Okay, so we go back to our development environment. Right click on the class file, choose the main program, run it. Nothing to put here, okay. Okay, so let's go back to our window here. Okay, so that's kind of interesting there. Actually, let me do this. Let me just clear everything away so we can see kind of fresh. So let's run it again. Right click, main, nothing here, okay. Okay, and let's go back and see what happened. Okay, so look at what happened here. Notice the difference between the first time and the second time I did it. The first time when I used print, it just smushed both words together. So hello world was on one line together. Okay, now this time when I used print line, PRINTL, and I went back to print line, notice the difference. Now they're both on separate lines. Okay, so print, if you just use print, it doesn't put an end of line, a carriage return at the end, whereas print line does. So if you use print line, after it prints out the message, the string, then it will carriage return, and so the next thing that you print or print line out will be on a separate line. Okay, whereas print will put them together, smush them together all on the same line. And that seems like kind of a small distinction, but when you start to print out a lot of data, you're going to want to be mindful of the difference between the two. Okay, so as you do your first assignment, okay, think about whether you want things to be all on the same line or whether you want them to be on separate lines, and that's going to determine whether you use print or print line. Okay, otherwise your program is just going to be a bunch of either print or print line statements just printing out some data. Okay, so good luck. Let me know how things are going. With all programming, you want to start early because with technology, the main rule with technology is there's always bugs that come up when you least expect it. Okay, so start early. Let me know if there's any problems, and let's make sure this first assignment goes real smooth.